So today was going to be on a completely different topic. Actually, last Friday it was going to be on a completely different topic about the DSM criteria for autism, and I wanted to kind of do that. And I wrote the script. I finished it probably like 90 to 95%. It was good to go, and I just had this incredible resistance about actually sitting down and filming it. Like, I kept trying to push myself to do it, and it just didn't come out. I didn't want to do it. Didn't feel right somehow. And you know, in the midst of all these unprecedented times we live in, it's starting to feel weirder and weirder ignoring everything and just being like, well, the DSM, or Diagnostic Statistical Manual version 5, is as follows. And I know that that is making content that is going to be good for years and years, but it feels more and more like I'm hiding what I'm going through, which, as you might guess from the title, that I'm not really doing that well. So you know that I'm autistic. I have many ADHD traits, so I'm more extroverted, I think, than many autistic people are. I'm a novelty seeker, and you know, I've seen a lot of things on social media that are like, I'm autistic, I'm totally fine being at home for the rest of my life. Because autistic, haha, we like this. And actually, yeah, in some ways, I am very happy being at home. Pottering around, that is a British expression, I think, pottering. There are definitely upsides, of course there are. I think everybody can see some upsides to spending more time with your family and spending more time at home. I like spending time with my family. I feel like I'm getting more things done. I mean, the house is pretty clean. My son actually came into my bedroom the other day, and the first thing he said was, "Oh, that's a clean floor." And I'm not even making this up, but focusing on the positive, saying, it's all right, look at all these good things that are happening. I'm cleaning the house, I'm being productive in this way. And that's sort of ignoring the magnitude of what we're all going through, neurodivergent, neurotypical, or whatever. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, it was fine for a bit, and it just seems like it's getting a little bit harder as time goes on. Time, yes, what even is that anymore? And I mean, for the luckiest ones that are at home all day, and I'm aware of how lucky I am that I get to stay home, life has just become Groundhog Day, and that's kind of like the best case scenario right now, isn't it? So I'm personally kind of vacillating between being ultra productive, ultra sociable, I'm Zooming, I'm Skyping, I'm doing all the things, being on social media, and then just throwing my phone away in disgust and sobbing on the sofa and kind of isolating myself into this little cocoon or under my weighted blanket. I mean, I'm getting around to things that I've been putting off for months, and then I'm getting into arguments about, like, I don't know, animal videos on Twitter. Not really. But you know, that sort of petty stuff is working me up. And I'm fine until I'm not, and then everything's awful until it's fine again. And I seem to be on this merry-go-round of emotions until something switches, and then I go around the other way. What doesn't help, I guess, is that, like many autistic people, I have Alexithymia, which I have done a video on. If you want to watch that after this one, that would be nice. And so I find it really hard to actually know or label what I'm feeling, to name it, to put the emotion on it. And especially when I'm kind of like rattling around in my head all day. I've got my husband to talk to and my son to talk to somewhat, but I'm finding that without outside input, I get more and more lost in my own thoughts, and it kind of creates a bit of a weird feedback loop of emotions. And it's kind of like a perpetual Schrodinger's mood where I'm not coping and I'm coping at the same time, and it's a really weird place to be, I guess, for an extended period. I mean, the good news is here we have a kind of a date for when schools are opening, but I know that that's not a definite, and that's not really something that we can count on. It's just an idea, it's what we're planning, but things might not go that way. Anyway, I know that a lot of my viewers are pre-diagnosis, and thinking back to where I was at that time, where I was in my life and what I was doing, I was not exactly into self-help, but definitely, you know, self-bettering. I was constantly trying to be more this and less this and better, and I need to improve myself somehow, because I guess the essence was that my authentic self wasn't good enough. And so I was surrounded by all these tips, and honestly, I still kind of am. Every time I go on social media, I don't seek them out, but everybody wants to give their opinion on how you can be happier and better. So I'm sorry if you were hoping for tips from me during this time. I don't think self-care tips are always that great, and I would recommend avoiding many of them, actually. And I say this to myself as much as I'm saying this to anyone else, but especially what I see is this sort of cultural obsessive interest in the concept of gratitude right now. Be grateful for everything. Do a gratitude journal every night. Think about how grateful you are. And several months ago, I actually mentioned this in passing to my psychologist and how it never actually made me feel any better. And she said that the concept of gratitude can actually be harmful for autistic people. And it kind of makes sense, you know, we can be chock full of empathy, we can be hyper empathetic and be upset about like inanimate objects not being included and animals, and you know, we're very empathetic about all kinds of things. And so pointing out how great our life is and how grateful we should be, how much stuff we have that other people don't, can actually be kind of like a spiral trigger, and certainly is for me, because you're comparing what you have versus what you could have not, or what other people have not, and there aren't that many mental steps from that to how dare you be upset when so many people are suffering? Why are you depressed? Why are you anxious at a time like this? You just get to stay home. Other people are putting their lives on the, you know, they're risking their lives. Other people, you know, don't have stable accommodation. And so something that is meant to uplift you and help you get out of a sort of depressive funk actually ends up filling you with shame. And that's not something that's talked about a lot because we're constantly bombarded with gratitude journals and whatever. So if you relate to that, maybe just consider not doing that. The suggestion my psychologist made was like a win journal, which was more like a celebration of yourself, which sounds really like boastful and egotistical, even though you're just writing in a journal for no one else to look at. It seems really boastful to me to talk about all the things that I'm good at and the things that I did really well in, but it's something that I think might be better for mental health at a time like this. Just my opinion. And the truth is we don't actually know that much science about promoting good mental health in autistic people because it's kind of assumed that autistic people are, I don't know, lost cause or something, but there can be autistic people in good mental health as well as in poor mental health. And autistic people during a global pandemic that's sort of unprecedented in most of our lifetimes, we really know nothing. And yet there seems to be advice everywhere we look. You know, stick to a routine, get outside every day, blah, blah, blah. And it's funny the things that we're being suggested, even the neurotypical, you know, suggestions for how to cope. I actually saw a psychologist, just a random psychologist online, suggesting repetitive movements like knitting or something with your hands during this time. And I thought it was very interesting how repetitive movements, when they're done by autistic people, are like idiopathic and, you know, something really wrong. But when they're being suggested for neurotypical people to cope during a time of crisis, like that's okay. So just kind of like the hypocrisy of society is exposing itself. And now I'm like, you can see why my mental health might be not so good at the moment, because everything's getting me worked up and angry, and the hypocrisy and the unfairness and the injustice, and it's all kind of heightened at the moment. So I just keep on thinking all of this, like, not positive thinking exactly, but all of these tips that we're giving, or this advice, but what would we say to people who were isolating during like the Great Plague? You know, would we be like, if it be true thee don't cometh out of this quarantine with either a new art such as strummeth the lute, starting what thee've been putting off, having developed calculus, thee didn't ever wanted the time, thee lacked the discipline. And be sure to do a dueling once a day to keep yon waist trim. Anyway, this is more advice for myself than anyone in particular. But can we maybe just stop trying to make ourselves okay right now? Things are not okay. Feeling sad and anxious in response to incredibly stressful and worrying times is normal, expected even. And now is not the time to focus on productivity, grueling exercise regimens, gentle exercise regimens, hustle culture, whatever. It's not the time. It's time to maybe take a step back and experience boredom. Not just boredom in a kind of I'm constantly itching boredom in some way, which I've always kind of attributed to like a few ADHD traits, but that kind of boredom where you were so bored that you clean the skirting boards because you want to, and then congratulate yourself on learning a new skill so you don't have to do that again for 10 years. I put a lot of pressure on myself to stay consistent on YouTube because I know that that is how you grow. Make sure you do at least weekly videos and stuff like that. And you know, in some ways I'm really good at pushing through everything I'm feeling, and this is not just online, that's in real life, and it leads people to think that like I'm doing okay. You know, there have been times in my life where I've been incredibly depressed, like thinking back at school and university, and people had no idea because I just pushed through it. That's called high functioning depression. I know functioning labels for autism are a bit meh, but high functioning depression is where you feel like everything is completely falling apart and you push through and nobody even has a clue you're depressed. Anyway, I'm really good at pushing through everything I'm feeling, and that leading people to think that I'm okay because I'm producing content and I'm acting, I'm putting on a happy face. It's called masking, and I'm really good at it. And this probably has ended up contributing to Alexithymia because I don't even know what I'm feeling anymore because I can be whatever you want me to be, you know. There's a song in that. But I have a lot of people watching me now, and it's getting to the point where I feel like I have a responsibility not to put on a happy face sometimes because I don't want people thinking,
well, she's doing okay, why am I not? How is she managing to cope? She's autistic and she's coping.
So the truth is I'm not coping. There you go. But I am also way better at helping other people than myself sometimes. So I thought maybe like I would think about it from giving advice to my theoretical 1600 era plague shielding self, you know, like Mary Jane, or no, Mary Catherine, let's call her. Just get through this time as best as you can. Focus on your health and your mental health in the ways that you need to. Occupy your days with whatever. Have fun, include some stupid shit you don't really need with your regular online orders. Keep your family alive and healthy, because not every plague is an opportunity for self-improvement. So I've been rewatching Buffy, and I just thought I would quote her at this time. Seize the moment, because tomorrow you might be dead. Stay safe, everyone. I'm going to be doing a live with Purple Ella this Friday, so I've linked it below, and set your reminders so you don't miss it, because we are going to be talking about the assessment process, which both of us went through as adults. Hope to see you then, and I hope that I will get that DSM video done at some point. See you later. Bye. Thank you very much.